My wife fired me. She said, I'm slowing down the business. A year later, she stood in tears on the doorstep. You are my only chance. I saved her company to destroy it completely. My name's John. I'm 42. And if you asked anyone who knew me 10 years ago, they'd probably tell you I was the kind of guy who had it all, or at least was getting close. 12 years married, no kids, not by choice, but by fate, I guess. We tried. We even got close once, but that's not where this story starts. This story begins with a conference room, gray walls, cold table, Veronica sitting at the head of it like a queen on a throne, sharp suit, red nails drumming on the polished wood. I'll get to that moment, but first I need to tell you how we got there. Veronica and I met when we were nobodies. She was working freelance, fresh out of college, doing graphic design for local restaurants. I was in between jobs on my third layoff in 4 years, and I just started dabbling in digital ads. Back then, the industry was the Wild West. Facebook was still trying to figure itself out. Instagram ads weren't even a thing. We were broke, caffeinated, and full of ideas. She had this fire in her, the kind that could pull you in and burn you alive. But I didn't know that yet. I just saw brilliance, creativity, and damn, did she make you feel like you were the only person in the room when she locked eyes with you. One night, maybe 2 months after we started dating, we were sitting in her tiny apartment, eating bad Thai food out of the carton, and she looked at me and said, "Why don't we just do it together?" I blinked at her. "Do what?" "The agency, our own. You handle strategy, I'll do the branding. We make a name for ourselves." It sounded insane, but it also sounded like the most natural thing in the world. So we did. No office, no team, just two laptops and a Wi-Fi connection that dropped every time the microwave ran. We named it Viridian Marketing, some combination of our names, though people always assumed it was hers. I didn't care. Not then. I poured everything I had into it, not just money, though I drained my savings, took out a loan, maxed out 2 credit cards to get us through the first year. But time, heart, I believed in us, in what we were building, the long nights, the client calls that went until midnight, the panic attacks when we lost a contract, the joy when we landed our first big client. I still remember the champagne we couldn't afford, the cheap bottle we drank out of mugs in the kitchen. We built a life out of nothing, a real living thing, a business that started to get noticed. And then, things shifted. At first it was subtle. She started hiring without telling me, making decisions in meetings we were supposed to attend together. "It's just faster this way," she'd say. "You're always swamped." I was swamped because I was still doing the grunt work, managing campaigns, meeting with clients, trying to hold the machine together while she polished the image. Then there were the new people, young, loud, dressed like they were going to some rooftop party even on Tuesdays. She loved them, said they brought in fresh energy. I tried to keep up. I told myself it was just growth, that this was what success looked like. But I started feeling like a stranger in my own office. Then came the break. It was a Friday evening. The office was empty. She asked me to stay after the team left. She didn't look me in the eye when she spoke. "I think we need some space, not forever, just for a while. You've been distant, and I feel like I'm doing this alone." I wanted to laugh. Me? Distant? But I didn't argue. I didn't want to fight her. So I left. I spent the weekend in a motel near the edge of town. Thought I was giving her breathing room. Thought maybe she'd realize she missed me. On Monday, I got an email from HR. Termination notice. Effective immediately. No call, no explanation. Just done. I stared at the screen for a long time. 12 years married, 7 years building Viridian from scratch, and she fired me like I was some intern who missed a meeting. I walked to the office. Still had my key card back then. The receptionist, new girl, probably didn't even know my last name, gave me this awkward smile and said, "Oh, I think Veronica's in a meeting." She wasn't. She was in her office, with a man I'd never seen before. Tall, tan, white smile. That kind of confidence you don't earn, the kind you're born with. I didn't go in. I didn't need to. I turned around and walked out. It would be weeks before I found out who he was, longer before I learned the full story. But that day, in that walk from the building back to my car, I felt something in me fracture. Not anger, not even sadness. Just silence. Like a part of me had gone completely still, and for the first time in my life, I had no idea what to do next. I wish I could tell you I bounced back, that I had some kind of inner strength, that I picked myself up, hit the gym, launched a new business, and became a millionaire by Tuesday. But that's not how it happened. The truth is, after Veronica fired me, I didn't get out of bed for 3 days. I stared at the ceiling of a cheap one-bedroom rental where the heat barely worked and the faucet dripped like it was mocking me. I had nothing. No job, no marriage, and worst of all, no allies. Almost everyone we knew chose her. Some pretended they were neutral, but I could tell. The silence, the polite head tilts at the grocery store, the texts that stopped coming, the unfollows. I heard things too, rumors, that I'd burned out, that I couldn't handle the pressure, that Veronica had no choice. She didn't just erase me from the company, she rewrote the narrative. I remember sitting in my car outside a cafe where one of our former interns was having coffee. I could see them through the window, laughing, talking, showing something on a laptop. They used to come to me for advice. Now they didn't even recognize me when I passed by the glass. I was invisible. I spent a month like that, bouncing from temp gigs to freelance scraps, trying to get my mind straight. I couldn't go back to marketing. That world, our world, I was poisoned now. But I still had my brain, my discipline, and time. I started teaching myself code. It was brutal at first, like learning to think in another language while your whole life is on fire. But it gave me something to hold on to, something that didn't remind me of her. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and somewhere in that fog, I found clarity. I stopped checking her socials, stopped asking mutual friends how she was doing. I stopped drinking. I started running, not for fitness, just to feel the pavement under my feet, to prove I still existed. I landed my first dev contract 6 months later, a friend of a friend who needed help building a web app. It was messy code, bad UI, no documentation. But I cleaned it up, fixed the backend, made it faster. The startup's founder, a woman named Eva, took notice, said she liked the way I thought, that I understood chaos. I told her I'd been through a lot. She didn't ask questions, just gave me more work. Within 8 months, I was full-time. A year later, she named me CTO. It was small, still growing, but the momentum was real. We were doing something different, real-time data platforms for healthcare, and investors were circling. And that's when I heard the name again, Viridian. I was at a tech mixer in the city standing with Eva and a few venture guys when one of them mentioned it, offhand. You remember Viridian? That agency? Crazy story. Their lead investor just pulled out. Whole thing's crashing. I blinked. I didn't say a word, just smiled politely and sipped my drink. Later that night, I sat at my desk and started digging. Turned out the man I'd seen in Veronica's office, the one with the perfect teeth and laugh like a sales pitch, was a venture investor named Mitchell Dane. Flashy, connected, but shady. He'd put money into Viridian, demanded control, and started pushing out clients in favor of higher value contracts that didn't exist yet. He gutted the heart of the company, the same one I helped build. And now, half their team had left. Longtime clients were gone. Their website was a ghost town. Veronica had built an empire on image, and it was crumbling from the inside. Part of me felt vindicated. Another part felt nothing at all. She thought she could replace me, thought she could take what we built and run with it. Without the quiet hours, the late nights, the spreadsheet after spreadsheet of numbers only I kept track of. But a business isn't just a brand, it's bones. And I had been the bones. Still, I had no plans to reach out. I wasn't going to gloat. I had moved on, or so I thought. Because 2 weeks later, my phone buzzed with a number I hadn't seen in over a year. I stared at it for a long time before picking up. I didn't say anything, just waited. There was a pause on the other end, then her voice, low, cautious. John, it's me. And just like that, it all came rushing back. I didn't say anything right away, just held the phone to my ear, listening to her breathing on the other end. Funny how quickly silence can fill with memories. Her perfume, the way she used to say my name when she was half asleep, the time we danced barefoot in the kitchen after our first major client signed on. All of it, shattered glass underfoot now. John, she repeated, please, I know I don't have the right to call, but I didn't know who else to. I cut her off, calmly. Say it. She hesitated. Say what? You know what? Another beat of silence. I was wrong. Her voice cracked on the word, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel something. But it wasn't pity or forgiveness. It was satisfaction, the kind that comes after a long, cold storm. She went on, said Mitchell had pulled out without warning, that he'd made promises, waved big numbers around, then leveraged the company into debt and vanished. Key clients were gone. Cash flow was bleeding. The team didn't trust her. Half of them had jumped ship already. It's like the whole thing's rotting from the inside, she said. And I don't know how to fix it. She paused. You were the best thing I ever had in that company. I didn't realize it until too late. I stayed quiet. Let her sit in it. Then she said the thing I knew was coming. I need your help, John. And I nearly laughed. She needed me. The same man she'd fired over email. The same man she'd cast out of his own creation. I didn't laugh, though. Instead, I asked, why me? Why not one of your new hires? Or one of the people who clapped when I left? There was a pause, then, because none of them know how to hold this together. Not the way you did. That was the first honest thing she'd said in years. But I wasn't going to make it easy. Okay, I said finally. I'll think about it. John, please. I said I'll think about it. And I hung up. I let her sweat for 3 days. Then I sent her a list. It was simple. No negotiations. I come back under my terms. Full operational control. You report to me. Publicly. You sign a document stating that I own 60% of the company and that all intellectual property created before my departure was my contribution. Mitchell is out. No contact. No comeback. You tell the board the truth. All of it. A power play? Absolutely. But I wasn't coming back as the man she fired. I was returning as the man she created. The man forged in her betrayal. She agreed to everything. I don't think she had a choice. When I walked back into that office, the one we'd designed together down to the exposed brick and the custom espresso machine, people stared, whispered. Some looked relieved. Others looked worried. Veronica tried to smile. I didn't smile back. I got to work. I started reviewing accounts, talking to vendors, calling old clients, the ones who'd left without saying goodbye. I didn't beg them to return. I just let them know I was back, that things were going to be different. Some of them came back. I met with the staff, laid out a new structure. No more ping-pong tables and empty buzzwords. We were rebuilding, for real this time. And slowly, the bleeding stopped. Veronica tried to insert herself again, tried to play the charismatic visionary, the fearless leader. But every time she stepped up, people looked at me, waited for my approval. She hated it, but she had no choice, because she'd handed me the keys. She didn't know it yet, but she'd invited the devil back in, and I had one more move left to play. Shmi. Veronica smiled for the cameras. She gave speeches about resilience, about how Viridian had weathered a storm and come out stronger. But behind closed doors, she was shrinking. I didn't humiliate her in front of others. That would have been too easy. Instead, I took the one thing she cherished above all else: control. Every decision passed through me. Every meeting ended with, "Let's check with John." She'd nod, tight-lipped, pretending to be okay with it. But I saw the rage flicker in her eyes. She was trapped in the very power dynamic she used to weaponize against me. Only now it was real. And then, when the company stood tall again, when she thought we were back on track, I sold it. Not partially, entirely, to a competitor. It was Eva, my new CEO, who brought the idea. Her company had been scaling fast. She needed a brand with Viridian's name recognition. And now that I had majority ownership, it was an easy deal. Veronica had no veto rights. I made sure of that when she signed the paperwork, desperate for a lifeline. I walked into her office the morning the deal closed. She was at her desk, phone in hand, talking about some campaign she wanted to pitch next quarter. I let her finish. Then I dropped the file on her desk. "What's this?" she asked. "Final terms of acquisition," I said. She laughed, confused. "Acquisition of what?" "Viridian." She went pale. I sat down, calm as ever. "You signed over operational rights, Veronica. You gave me everything. You were so desperate, so sure you could puppet me back into place, that you didn't even read the fine print." She grabbed the file, flipped through it. Her hands trembled. "You sold it," she whispered. "You sold my company?" "No," I corrected. "Our company. The one I built with you. The one you kicked me out of like I was nothing. The one you thought you could run without me." I leaned back in the chair across from her. For a moment I felt sorry for her, but it passed. "There's a severance package in there. Fair enough to get you by. But you're done here, Veronica." "You can't," her voice cracked. "This is everything I have." "And now," I said, standing, "it's nothing." She sat in silence as I left the office. Not a word, not a scream, just the sound of her world collapsing. Again. Only this time, it wasn't by accident. As I walked out of Viridian for the last time, I didn't look back. There were no grand speeches, no mic drops, just the quiet satisfaction of justice done right. Not loud, not angry, just precise. She thought she could take me out of the company. But I was never just a part of it. I was the foundation. And when you pull out the foundation, the whole thing falls. When Veronica asked me to come back, she thought I was still the same man she had fired. The man who once followed her lead. The man who stayed quiet for the sake of the team. The man who smiled through the humiliation. She had no idea I'd been sharpening my knives every day since. She brought me back under the pretense of partnership. "Just help us get through this storm," she said. "We need your structure, your vision," she added. "We." It was cute how she still tried to speak in plurals, but I made my terms clear from the start. Full executive authority, strategic direction, no oversight. She didn't even blink. That's how desperate she was. She signed the documents without consulting legal. Too eager. Too sure she'd still be able to control me somehow. But she had already lost. She just didn't know it yet. My first day back at Viridian felt haunting. Same glass walls, same coffee machine, same team I had once led like family. Only now they greeted me differently. Wary, quiet, like kids seeing a ghost. Some of them avoided eye contact. Others nodded silently, guilt behind their eyes. I didn't blame them. They stayed loyal to whoever was still signing the paychecks. But now the paychecks came from me again, and the power shift was immediate, rebuilding or reclaiming. Publicly, I positioned myself as the turnaround guy, the leader who could stabilize and modernize operations. Behind the scenes, I was dismantling the structure Veronica and Mitchell had built in my absence. The first thing I did, I reassessed every senior hire. Mitchell had brought in his own people, arrogant, lazy, and shockingly underqualified. I initiated performance reviews that were more like surgical strikes. One by one, I replaced them. Not with friends, not with yes men, with killers. People I knew from the tech world who owed me favors. People with loyalty forged in fire, not parties. Within a month, the culture started to shift. Veronica noticed. "I feel like I don't recognize my own company anymore," she said one night, half joking. I sipped my coffee. "That's because it's not yours anymore," I said quietly. She laughed nervously, but she heard me. Veronica still had a seat at the table, but she was out of her depth. I made financial decisions faster than she could process. I used business lingo she couldn't keep up with. I flooded her inbox with documents she didn't have the patience to read. And in one of those documents, buried deep in legalese, was the transfer clause, a simple clause, giving me majority voting control. She signed it. I watched her do it with her favorite red Mont Blanc pen. When I walked out of that room, I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. Because this wasn't about winning. This was about balance. This was about justice. Once Viridian stabilized, once clients started coming back and profits inched upward, I made my move. I reached out to Eva Lang, CEO of Catalyst, a rising agency with teeth. They had offered me a position a year ago after seeing the mess at Viridian. I had turned them down then, but now I was offering something better, not a position, an acquisition. They didn't hesitate. 3 weeks of closed-door meetings, due diligence, NDAS, negotiation. Veronica had no idea. She was too busy trying to recover her image, arranging lunches with old partners and leaking to industry blogs that Viridian was entering a bold new chapter. She had no clue she wasn't even holding the pen anymore. When the deal was signed, I asked Eva for one favor. Let me tell Veronica personally. I found her in the boardroom, the same room where she fired me 18 months ago. Same chair, same view. She looked exhausted. Her hands trembled slightly as she held her phone. Bad day, I asked. Investor dropped out, she muttered. We might have to close 2 of our offices. I slid the envelope across the table. What's this? She asked, brows furrowed. The terms, I said. The deal's done. She opened it slowly, scanned the first page. Then her face paled. You sold Viridian? She looked up at me like she couldn't believe it. No, I said. You did. When you signed over voting control, her lips parted, but no sound came out. You asked me to come back and save the company, I continued. I did, and now it belongs to someone else. You can't do this, she whispered. This is my life. No, Veronica, it was ours, then you made it yours. Now, it's nobody's. Just a brand name in someone else's portfolio. She sat still for a long time. Finally, she said, I thought you'd come back to punish me. I just didn't know how far you'd go. I stood. I didn't come back to punish you, I said, walking toward the door. I came back to finish what I started. I paused at the threshold, hand on the frame. You thought you could fire me and keep the dream alive, but you forgot one thing. I was the dream, and I left. This time, on my own terms.